Okay, very good. Well, welcome, Tanmay and Esther. It's a great time to celebrate both of you because you both have completed your doctoral programs. And we're delighted to have you on this Zoom session so that we can share um, your life story and how you came to this point, where you started from, and then how you came into the GMU, and then you've been working, both of you, for quite a long time. And so I'm delighted to have both of you here to share your stories. And I'm just wondering about the quality of the video. Is this video, can you see me okay in your
Yes.
screen? Okay, very good. And Esther,
Yes.
and you can see Tanmay.
Yes, I see you. Okay.
Okay, so ladies should go first. So Esther, you and I have known each other, I think probably 10 years now, isn't it? Something like that?
Yes, because I remember we met in the year 2013
Okay,
at Mombasa, the coastal region of Kenya.
right.
And
So,
it being 2024, actually it's now 11 years.
wow. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about your own life story and how you came to this program and how you came to GMU and how we met in Kenya, but maybe start your own life story, where you grew up and how you happened to get involved in interfaith, which is another part of your story. And then now you've gone deeply into chaplaincy, particularly prison chaplaincy. So maybe you can just kind of tell us the next 10 minutes, your 10, 15 minutes, how you evolved in your own life. And the
Okay.
spirituality that infused your life, because I think you both are very spiritual people.
Okay. I would start by introducing myself.
Sure.
That my name is Esther Nditi Kaleli, and I been born and raised up in Kenya. Kenya is in Africa. And I've spent much of my adult life in the coastal region of Kenya, where before I left for the US, I was working in an organization for religious leaders that brought together the religious leaders of the 4 main religions that exist within the coastal region. So I first met Professor Gerald and the wife, Marita, and the late Frank Fisiora, may God rest his soul in peace, in the year 2013, when I was working as a project officer come program officer in Coast Interfaith Council of Clerics that is based in Mombasa town in the coastal region, and it's in a Nyali estate of Mombasa. There we were the main activities of my work was to hold meetings with religious leaders to dialogue because we kind of wanted to celebrate diversity so that people would not be against each other. And we wanted to put it in such a way that when the leaders are in agreement, then there was reduced suspicion, because maybe the Christians would feel like the Muslims were against them or their doctrine was not very friendly. But then we would mobilize the religious leaders in a way that they would understand the other religions so that they would get to know the do's and the don'ts of each religion. So at some point, GMU, through the president, Professor Gerard, they approached the management, actually through the board, the chairperson of the board of the Coast Interfaith Council of Clerics, that at least they were able to capacity build the interfaith concept to the religious leaders. And then being a project officer in the organization that had was able to get hold of the religious leaders, I was kind of tasked to mobilize those religious leaders. And then we came up with some seminar. It was for the first year, 2013, it was a seminar that was for 40 hours, which was a 1-week conference and Professor Gerald and the wife, Mrs. Marita Gerald, and Frank were actually the main. They were like the main facilitators. They were the main instructors. They are the ones that had the technical kind of know-how in interfaith and intercultural dialogue. So that's how I met with them. And I was also a member, I was a participant of that group that we started the training.
Could you mention who was the chairperson at that time of Coast Interfaith Council of Clerics?
The chairperson at the time was the now Bishop Wilbert Lago.
We'll talk about that.
Who is currently the bishop now. He used to be the Vicar General in the Catholic Diocese of Mombasa, and now he has been elevated into a bishop overseeing the Malindi Diocese, still within the coastal region of Kenya.
Okay, you want to go on then?
Well, the training was the first time we did the first group, that was in 2013. And we only brought in the religious leaders per se, the pastors, the imams, and the sheikhs, the priests in the Hindu Council religion of Kenya. And we also had the African traditional religious leaders. So for the first cohort that was composed of 30 participants was only for the religious leaders and 4 staff. Training, and after the training, at the end of the 1-week seminar, we kind of developed some projects that were going to last a year, that were going to be a year long. So when Professor and his team were going back to America, we had the projects that remained reviews. So every quarter we would meet and kind of get the progress, make an assessment of the progress. And after the end of that 1 year, we had an evaluation seminar that took 3 days, and it was also held in Mombasa town.
Thank you.
Do I need to mention where it was? It was held in a hotel. Where GMU took the cost.
We started with the Episcopal Church, didn't we? I mean, the Episcopal Seminary when we first started doing it. Remember that we were at the Bishop Haddington.
Yes, before we went to Bishop Haddington, the first cohort was in the SOS. It's a Germany village home that was in Nyali.
Okay, I forgot about that. I'm glad you mentioned
that. And then when the evaluation is the one that we did at Laura's Hotel, still in Mombasa. And I remember GMU actually took care of the cost for the meals and also for the hire of the hall.
Just to make a comment, when we first met CICC and Bishop, then Father Lago, he asked us to raise the money. We didn't have the money in hand to start this program. So we had to go back to the United States, and we started raising the money for the program, which would cover the cost to come there, and I think the cost was around $5,000 we raised in the initial phase. But so Bishop Father Lago said, well, if you can raise the money, we'll do this program. Well, it continued really until COVID time, right? Till COVID took over. Because I think the last time we did it was 2019, if I'm not mistaken. Is that your memory?
Yes, it was the last one that you did was in 2018, and I had already left Kenya. And by then we kind of made a transition. Rather than just capacity building the religious leaders, there was a need that we would have it introduced into schools, interfaith introduced into schools, and it took the shift that now we kind of targeted more on the teachers than on the religious leaders.
Yeah. So we did quite a bit of work with principals for a few years. And then when COVID came on, we got more involved with Tangasa University. and started doing international interfaith programs with the Institute for Islamic Christian Relations at Tangasa, called IRDIS. So I think you already had left and come to the United States by that time. When we affiliated with Tangasa IRDIS, and they asked us to do big interfaith conferences online. So we could do that without having to travel as much. We could do that using the internet. So that started us, I think in 2019, we made an affiliation agreement with Tangasa. And then why don't you share about when you came to the United States, you started to take courses with GMU.
Yeah, and before I forget, even when you started collaborating with Tangaza, I also, even though I was in the US, I was part of the conferences that were taking place because it was online. But
Right.
then I wasn't physically, in Kenya. So after I came to the US, I reconnected with GMU and actually was able to visit with the president of the GMU at their home in San Jose. And when we met, we were able, he kind of guided me into, I showed the interest of continuing my studies because interfaith has been like, it is in me. I just realized I can't live with everything I do is just interfaith. So when I visited with them, also the late Frank also joined us there and we discussed, and then is when I decided to take a course in a professional certificate that enabled me to kind of put more emphasis on peace related issues, and especially mediation, dialogue, mediation, negotiation, and arbitration. So it took me like 2 years, because after I talked with the professor, I was able to enroll, and then I started my education. I was doing it online, and it took 2 years, and I was able to complete. And during the time when I was doing the professional certificate, then I was introduced to Federation of Christian Ministries, which is a gathering that they hold prayer meetings every Thursday. So every Thursday until sometimes early this year, I have been meeting with the general, I've been gathering with the main body of the Christian Federation of Ministries for Prayers, and also making some presentation based on interfaith and Christianity per se. So I was able to.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I started my training in the year 2020. And in 2022, I was able to graduate, having, satisfied the board that I could be certified with a professional certificate. And, GMU has records of the same. It was an online kind of a graduation. Then after graduating, within that duration, when I was doing the peace, kind of studies, and I also got introduced to Laudato Si, one of the subjects within that course that kind of motivated me in a way that I impressed, being able to come up with an organic farming activity where I live. And where I live, I've been doing some work with some ladies that have developmental challenges. And we have been able to together work and come up with some farming whereby we are able to produce our own organic food for our consumption. So actually GMU has really not only given me certificates, but it has also helped me, kind of become conscious even of what I need to eat, being able to eat well. Right. And I still practice the same, remembering that back in Africa, I was also doing some farming. So it's like they've really helped me to continue advancing my interest of wanting to produce, and have the right directions in production of food.
And now with your help and assistance through the Maryknoll affiliate chapter, you might want to say about the organic farming project we're trying to develop in Kenya also.
Yes, in the process through the Merino affiliate that I was also introduced to by GMU through my studies, then I also connected with the other Merino affiliate chapter in Chicago that were studying the Laudato Si, and I really joined them so that I could still get more knowledge after the basic that was introduced to me during my studies. And in the process of, because after even though I was joining, I was connecting to the Chicago chapter, we also had through GMU started a Kenya Interfaith chapter, Merino chapter that is a very unique one because it brings the rest of the other chapters, to my understanding, Christian. But the Kenya Interfaith, the Kenyan chapter is interfaith in nature. Right. So while we are having our monthly meetings, we've been able to brainstorm with all of us, and I kind of shared the idea about the organic farming, and we have impressed it that now the members that are in Kenya have been able to initiate the process of coming up with farming. And actually it is at some advanced stage because some money has been, we were able to identify a piece of land that one of us was able to kind of lease it to us without really paying, kind of donated it and gave us some, specification of dates, duration that we can be able to use it. And through GMU, some fundraising has been done in collaboration with the Harmon Institute of Kenya, that at least they got some of the farm inputs that now I believe, if I'm not wrong, before the end of this month, I believe they would have already prepared the piece of land and actually started the cultivation. And that is to ensure that even the Kenyans themselves can be able to provide themselves with food because of food insecurity, that at least they can be able to come up together and with the kind of support, be able to produce food for themselves. And also because they have some technical team that is training them on organic farming, they can also extend that knowledge to other members of the society, so that at least because they are learning on how to use the farming methods that are, you put the less inputs for higher yields.
Thank you, Esther. Well, so I believe we've already funded the first part of that project to get it started. And we're hoping that, as you said, it'll have its first phase undergoing very soon, like probably by the end of the year. So, and that's interfaith chapter is quite unique in Maryknoll. It's the only interfaith chapter, I think, that exists in the Maryknoll community, which is a worldwide movement. Started off just as Christian, but now it's in Kenya, it's interfaith. So we're really pleased that you inspired the chapter to undertake this organic farming project. Do you want to say something about your prison ministry, which we haven't gotten into yet, which is your final part of your studies with GMU, and now it's merging into your, hopefully your professional capacity as a Christian prison minister?
Okay, while I was still doing, when I was still I was still supporting some ladies in coming up with the organic farming, I kind of joined a church where they needed some people that would volunteer into the prison ministry. And looking at my work schedule, I was only able to be off duty on a Monday. And then at the church, the prison ministry used to meet on Monday, and therefore I kind of started participating in their prison ministry, listened to what they were doing out in the prisons, and really fully developed a major interest. And I remember sometimes sharing my, just sharing with Professor, and I showed the interest that I had with being able to work with those that are incarcerated. And then within a short time, he called me and told me that there was a scholarship, that was being awarded towards anybody who would be able to take a course in prison ministry. And I really felt very excited and thrilled, and I kind of consented that I was ready to start. And then he kind of, I mean, now that I already knew the administration of GMU, I filled in the necessary forms, got the subject that I was going to study to enable me to become a minister in prison. So I have done that. I enrolled in 2022, and I now by 2024, within 2 years, I have been able to complete my studies. And other than just the studies, during the second year of my study, I started doing a practicum. I went through the process of clearance by the county government. They have to do your fingerprints, make sure that at least you do not have any records of crime. And when I went through, then I was attached to through my church, I was able to start doing my practicum, or being able to visit when they incarcerated for 1 year. So far, that is what I have done. And when I was just finishing my practicum, an opening came up for all along, my heart has been pouring out for women, and I've been praying God that if I have to serve, even with those that are incarcerated, that I would be able to do it, with the women. And the last 2 months, they kind of gave me some forms. I was able to fill them up.
I don't know what happened to Esther.
I think she's coming back in.
Hello, Esther.
Yeah, I don't know,
You're coming back. You're coming back. Something went out. We can hear you.
You can hear me, but I can't see the screen. Can I just continue talking?
Yeah, just continue talking. You have two, Esther has two going. Should one be taken off? Oh, there you are. Okay, you're back now. Can you hear us?
I'm kind of connected on my phone because I don't know what has happened to my.
Okay, we're back now, but you got two screens going, so one of them should be deleted, I think. What do you think, Tanmay?
I think, Esther, if you want to try speaking again and you can unmute. The other screen was fine. Do you want to just unmute? Can you unmute the?
I don't know whether you can you hear me?
Yes.
She's got two screens open, that's the
Okay, it
problem.
seems like it has
You gotta
jumped
turn one of the
into
screens
one.
off, Esther. You got two screens going at the same time.
Okay, now you can hear me?
Yes, you'll probably have to mute the other one, but we can hear you. There's a little bit of an echo, but we can hear you.
Now, do you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay, so I was just saying that the last 2 months, I have been taken in at Los Calinas. It's called a county reentry detention jail. And that's where I am serving with the ladies, doing some Bible study with them, and also doing a one-on-one kind of a pastoral counseling.
so Esther, my understanding is that you're going to be ordained also through or commissioned by FCM for prison ministry early in 25, and you'll be graduating with your Doctor of Ministry program at the same time. So we'll hope to have a graduation ceremony with you, as well as the time of your commissioning from FCM and your awarding of your degree. So it's a lot of things coming together, and we're so happy that you have persevered through this several-year process. And it's a testimony to your perseverance and your dedication to ministry and to serving people that need your service very much. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to that. I'm making arrangements with FCM so that we can schedule. There are some requirements that I need to do, and I've done the groundwork. And I believe sometimes early next year, or maybe either February or March, then I would be able to have the ordination.
We're planning to lead a delegation down there when you have your commissioning. So we're looking forward to that. So thank you
very much. And one thing I can't forget to say is that the support that Professor Gerald and the wife have given me is actually what has been my driving force. When I introduce them to anybody, I say they are my mentors, and I truly mean so, because they have been able to show me and give me connections that probably on my own I would have struggled a little bit. So, I mean, I'm just thanking God for them, and that at least they are connected with GMU that is giving me this kind of a milestone. I really thank God for their lives.
Thank you. We're so happy to be connected with you, because you are the fruit of what we hoped FCM and GMU could do in the world. And you are a perfect example of how these two organizations are benefiting you and your ministry. So thank you so much. So I'll turn to Tanmay now. If it's okay with you, Esther, we'll hear the story of Tanmay's ministry and teaching. And so Tanmay, it's now your turn.
Sure.
Tell your story.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Grudzen, and thank you so much, Esther, for that wonderful sharing of your journey. Mine is not as elaborate, but it is a simpler path that involved a lot of reflection and just kind of aha moments. So as Dr. Grudzen mentioned, I have been with GMU, but it began when I was actually, the interest with GMU began when I was actually volunteering out in Sri Lanka in 2018. Usually as teachers, we have the summers off. So the 2 months in between June and September, I tried to get out and do some volunteering with grassroots organizations in the world. And it was a night in Sri Lanka that I came across a university out in Thailand that was that had a partnership with GMU on a certificate for world religions. And there were 4 courses that you had to take and learn about, get the insight in before receiving the certificate. And then I dug in a little deeper, and I thought a little bit more work, but a fascinating route would be just to take those 4 courses and then also pursue writing a final paper, a theology paper for the doctorate. And so I thought, why not? And so I connected with Dr. Grudzen, and I reached out to, I believe, Dr. Michael Connolly, and it was wonderful because I had already completed my master's in both environmental studies at York University here in Toronto, as well as a master's in education from Medaille College out in Buffalo in New York State. And so my profession in teaching, I had already paved that path, and I knew that that's what I wanted to pursue, but I knew that something was kind of lacking. And this was, I guess, like the initial moment where I thought, I think I need to really think about education in a different light. And my upbringing in my own, I guess, spiritual tradition, or as a Hindu born and raised in Canada, also you navigate this, I don't want to say diaspora, but like a dual identity where we belong to maybe the cultural background and the religious tradition is something from another subcontinent of India back home, predominantly Hindu India. But being born and raised here and trying to navigate this life as a minority, but really in the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual space of it all, we're trying to negotiate who we are. And growing up here, I knew that was something that I always, I'm not going to say struggled with, but I definitely carved out and it paved based on my own upbringing in the movement that I was part of, and still am part of today, which is the Swadhyaya movement, which was initiated and began in India, in Mumbai, based on the teachings of Pandurang Shastri Artavale. So having that allowed me to ground my own knowledge and learning and identity in my own Hindu philosophy and the teachings and the beliefs, but also trying to take the best of what was surrounding me here in the predominantly Christian world of Toronto, Canada. The good thing was that, and still is, that it is a very highly diverse, very pluralistic, a multicultural city here. And so, we are able to really find a sense of community and practice that here. And so this journey with GMU began in 2018, September. And I had the privilege of actually, even though this is an online correspondence program, I actually had the privilege of meeting Dr. Grudzen within the first 2 months, as the Parliament of World Religions in 2018 was held in Toronto. And that was a blessing. It was fantastic because, now I could visualize who my professors, who my mentors were in this program over the last 6 years. And it was really wonderful meeting Dr. Grudzen then. So the 2 courses that I had with Dr. Grudzen were the first being Comparative World Religions, and the second, Mysticism in Christianity and Beyond, which covered mostly the monotheistic religions, as well as a good take on what Hinduism or Buddhism or some of the Eastern spiritual traditions look like. That piqued my interest, actually, and I have a couple of the books here that Dr. Grudzen connected me with today. And one was this one here by Ursula King, Christian Mystics. And I fell in love with the work of Ursula King, particularly we had an assignment on choosing a mystic that was part of this book. And the one that really resonated with me the most, it's been about 5 years, so I don't know if I'm saying the full name correctly, but Dionysius the Areopagite, and he was
Areopagite.
Yes, the Areopagite. Yes, that's right. So a lot of what came out of that learning was this hidden love, this idea of anonymity, but there was this analogy around the sculpting and how we're trying to carve out our way into the qualities and the negating, the idea of beauty or absolute or truth being through the negation. And this was very similar to the work of Shankaracharya, and a lot of mysticism is connected to the Upanishads and the Vedantic forms and the teachings of the Indian and the Hindu philosophy. So it resonated quite beautifully, and that course, the mysticism in Christianity and beyond, had also piqued my interest in Hindu mysticism, and so I actually purchased, based on the teachings that Dr. Grudzen provided me with, the books related to Hindu mysticism, and got to see really fascinating links between the classical periods of devotion and in the Vedic era in India, and a lot of just really good learning and pieces that I don't think we would get here as students unless we are actually pursuing a particular spiritual tradition or a movement or an organization. And so these pieces were building blocks into the final years of the program, where I was trying to consolidate the learning into the project. And so Dr. Grudzen and we sat down to think about, and he really, the beauty of this program is that it's so flexible, but I really find, and I know we've talked about this before, but the subjective nature combined with the, still the scholarly nature of the text that we're reading and their insight, but the flexibility around what we can do and our own interests. Because when we're interested in a particular topic or a project, then that year spent doing the interviews or collecting the data is that much more, it's sweeter, it's worth the while. And so I was talking to Dr. Grudzen a few weeks back, and I was just saying how this is the first time that I actually conducted interviews in my last project on the paper that I wrote. And that was, it was a daunting task because, you know, these interviews were anywhere from 35 minutes to maybe sometimes an hour and 20 minutes. And, you know, we don't have like RAs or TAs to help us to scribe or anything. So I had them recorded. And then over the summer, I actually went back and transcribed each of them, showed Dr. Grudzen some of the work, and just extracted the patterns and the common themes from three major movements that I've been looking at, in the hopes of thinking about the larger question, which is how Hinduism can be sustained with the youth in the West, particularly in a city like Toronto, where if students or if individuals are born and raised in you know, predominantly non-Hindu societies, how we need something beyond just a place of worship, like a mandir or a temple or some type of a smaller, even if it's a consistent ritualistic mechanical place that we're you know, visiting, we need something deeper. And that these movements, particularly in alphabetical order, the Chinmaya mission, started by Swami Chinmayanand, the Satya Sai movement, and which is rooted in the work of Sai Baba and Satya Sai, the beloved Satya Sai, and the Swadhyay Parivar, the Swadhyay movement, based on the teachings of Pandurang Shastri Atavale, so the one that I attend. So about 7 for the first and the last movement, and 6 for the middle, the Satya Sai movement. So I sat down with some youth, anywhere from high school aged up till you know, even a married couple with kids, and it was a lot of work, but it was a wonderfully just an exhilarating process, where every single interview that I had, I was actually quite proud and really motivated by the fact that there are people who are still gravitating towards spirituality. And so as we've talked about before, Dr. Grudzen and I, in the West in particular, there may be a decline in religion and a decline or a movement and a trend away from organized religion or religion in general. And that's just the sad reality of it all. I think it's because it's so complex, or people try to conceive of religion as being good, but there's so much out there that might you know, cloud their thinking or cloud our ideas. And, you know, we turn away from the dogmatic aspects. But if we look at what is uniting, if we look at the foundations of the teachings themselves, we see that these movements, these three in particular, and probably others out there that are similar, can retain you know, a following or even appeal to the young minds because of particular nuanced ideas. One being, there's a rational approach to religion and to spirituality. 2, that they have an ability to question, that there are safe spaces where we can understand and we can ask our elders, or we can dig into the books, we can discuss, especially when spirituality or philosophy in the Hindu, Jain, Buddhist, the Eastern traditions is much more, it's beyond one life alone, and that there, you know, that the soul transcends the body, or the ideas of karma, reincarnation. All of these get at philosophical aspects that the students are really intrigued by. And the third, well, maybe the third and fourth are equally important. Concepts of God and divinity, and how divinity manifests in all beings, regardless of creed and wherever we go. The idea being, no matter which religion, no matter what background, no matter where we are in the world, this concept of interfaith or interspirituality is very, very prominent, and it resonates well. And finally, a big one, I think the top, including the last one here, the second last, sorry, is this idea of sense of belonging and community. a sense of identity and purpose and community is actually established there. So these are really coming together in this final paper, and I have Dr. Grudzen to thank, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be introduced to so many ideas and good names. And I do have to say also that in the realm of teaching as an educator, I did get a chance a couple of years back. I think it was one of the conferences that we presented at through GMU across the 3 continents. We did a talk on education for global citizenship. And there were a few points, a few slides in there that I really wanted to spotlight on this idea of, yes, there's character, there's communication, the critical thinking, the ideas that are usually out in the the world of education, but on the rise, and I think we haven't tapped into enough, is this idea of interfaith and spirituality, and this idea of beyond the intellectual quotient and the emotional quotient, there's also the spiritual quotient. And we really need to cultivate that. And I think we can do this in education by really linking these ideas together and seeing identity and honoring and centering student identities, bringing in who they are from their home life, from their cultures, and finding the common ground, finding what is universal. And this is going to be something that might take effort and time, but it will be in our best interest to do this, to bridge those gaps and to bring these pluralistic, multicultural, the societies that we have, where different people from different walks of life and faiths and traditions are coming together, to really genuinely see, the sameness, the similarity, the oneness of who we are. So for that, I thank Dr. Grudzen, and he introduced me. I'll leave this note. I leave on this note with this book by Roger Walsh, I believe. Yes, Essential Spirituality: The 7 Central Practices to Awaken Heart and Mind. And I don't know if you can see that here. Anyway,
yeah, Essential Spirituality. Yes.
And so this one, I actually was able to bring this as not a part of a professional learning or any piece at all, but just a group of educators on our own time at lunch. I just threw it out there into one of my schools and said, let's come together and let's use these ideas, not for any type of scrutiny or data collection or anything, but just those who want to. And we're there. And every week we got together for about, I want to say about 7 months or so, reading this book and letting it percolate in our own practices in the classroom or across the world of education, or in our own home lives. And I think from what I gathered, because I had just done a pre kind of questionnaire and a post just to get their thoughts, but on nothing else except what are we sensing, what are we feeling, and what can we do with this? And I think it was one of the best things, because it really just brought different educators from different faiths together, and we could see how these values that are really, the universal ones that we are trying to speak of, that we're trying to cultivate, they were trying to build, they resonated well, and it was almost as though we had these epiphanies of, this is the direction that education must go in order for us to really cultivate good-hearted, human beings and students of the future that we really want. So that's my journey in a maybe an elongated nutshell, but I thank Dr. Grudzen for that, and it's coming to a wonderfully beautiful end. But I am blessed. I do thank God. Esther, you put those words into our space here, and I'm going to echo that. And in Hindu tradition, we believe in karma, but also karma, but by the grace of the divine. And so certain things happen and are put into our lives for a reason. Who knows why in 2018 I decided in Sri Lanka that I'm going to take up this task of pursuing the degree with GMU. But I thank God for that, that moment, and for the past 6 years. And I appreciate and I value the work of Dr. Grudzen and Rita and Dr. Connolly and the professors there as well. So thank you.
Thank you. That university was Mahidol University, which is a Buddhist university that we partnered.
Yes.
Yes. And I got to visit the university there in Thailand. It so happens we have another doctoral student from Sri Lanka now, who's doing a doctorate in theology as well.
Excellent.
Yeah. But GMU is growing.
Maybe before you close, Professor, I just wanted to reckon the fact that me becoming a chaplain, I realized one of the requirements of a chaplain is to be able to supply materials for all the inmates irrespective. So the concept of interfaith is actually very paramount, even
Right.
in my profession. And, you know, really being very grateful that my journey with GMU has really cultivated that sense of dialoguing and, you know, looking at people with varied backgrounds, varied religions, like human beings, and therefore being able to render whatever kind of an assistance to anybody, irrespective of their religion.
I'm hoping each of you will get a copy of this time we had together. So you can then use this also to share your journey with other people that might be interested in making a similar journey. So you are two of our great students in GMU. Sometimes students start, but they don't persevere, but you have persevered through a long journey to the end of your time here with us. And we want to highlight you as model students. You know, I feel you're model students for GMU. So we're going to put this up on our GMU classroom. So it'll stay there permanently as an example of two people who have persevered through a lot of difficulty to get to this point in their lives and are doing such wonderful work. Each of you is a testimony to what GMU is about, both the interfaith dimension, but also supporting your service to the world. Because education is not just for our own personal benefit, it's how we can serve people everywhere in the world, wherever we are. And both of you are doing that. And so we congratulate you, and we look forward to being there with you at your graduation. If for Tanmay, it may be, unless you want to come and graduate with Esther in California, that's a possibility, I guess, if you want to come for her graduation. But it'd be nice, if we can't do it in person, we can do it virtually, as we've done other
Sure.
graduations.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you both. And any final thoughts you want to share, or is that have we come to the conclusion? Maybe each of you could have a prayer of thanksgiving in your own tradition as a prayer, and I'll do a final prayer in my tradition of Christianity. But so if you could each give a little prayer of gratitude, because gratitude is one of the biggest virtues, I think, that all religions teach, that we are given life by the divine and we are able to live fully a human life, but that is a gift in itself. So I'll turn it over for you for your final thoughts on gratitude and a prayer.
Sure. I'll begin. I'm just thinking of the first one that comes to mind is there's a Sanskrit mantra that it states Asato ma satgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityor ma amritam gamaya, om shanti shanti shanti. That is often to conclude a session or the prayer or the puja or the time together. But the three lines are truly moving from untruth to truth, and moving secondly from I guess not goodness but darkness to light. And the final is from mortality to immortality, but in the spiritual sense. And to that, we always look to the divine, but it is coming from a place of gratefulness, because for the souls that the souls of the human life, we are a small part, but an equally whole part, and we come from the divine, and hope, and we are striving to go back to the divine. And this is where these ideas of gratitude and love and compassion come in. So I am grateful, and I hope that we move from towards the light together in gratitude.
Thank you so much. Esther?
Yes, and I would wish to quote the Bible that really guides me, and it tells me never to despise humble beginnings. What I started was a journey that I didn't know where it was leading me. But today we are talking of me being able to kind of impact several others that are a little bit unfortunate or disadvantaged. So a long journey just starts with one step. And I'm very grateful that this far I have been brought to be somebody who people can depend on, not just because I am any great, but because there's a purpose in my life that my God created me for. And for that, I am very grateful.
So my prayer is called the Bene Creator Spiritus. Come, Holy Spirit, fill the hearts of thy faithful, and enkindle in us the fire of thy divine love. Send forth thy Spirit, and we shall be recreated, and you shall renew the face of the earth. We thank you, Lord, for this great time together. Amen. Thank you both, and we're recording this session. I'll send you each a copy of it. It'll also go up on GMU website. So thank you so much for all that you've given of yourselves. And we're delighted to have this time. And thank you for looking forward to the final step, your graduation.
Thank you, Dr. Grudzen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor, for thinking so well of us and for the support that you've given.
It's my pleasure. You give me such pleasure just working with you. I get such a good feeling in my heart that I've done something for you as well. So thank you for speaking so well.
Thank you. Thank you, Esther.
Thank you. And it was nice meeting you. And I hope one day we shall meet in person.
In person. Absolutely. It will happen.